Most common venomous snake here in Arkansas. This is a copperhead. And
It's tiny.
yeah, this is an adult, actually an adult female.
It doesn't look scary.
They may get another 6 inches or so, but generally when we find them out there, they're about 2.5. Maybe we'll find a 3-footer. But this is kind of standard size for these guys.
He ain't moving.
Oh, well, that's a good point. That's a good point. Notice how this snake is reacting. This is normal when you find them out in the wild. You come up on them, they realize you're there, and they're going to sit there very still. Now, if you can imagine this guy in a bed of dried leaves, they're very hard to see. So he's hoping that you're not going to see him, you're going to walk right on by, everybody has a good day. Where it gets to be a problem is if you're not watching where you're going and not wearing good boots and you step on them, then oftentimes they'll turn around and bite you. But he's being pretty good about that. So we've been, like I said, I've been messing with handling venomous snakes for over 30 years now. I can tell you I've never been chased by a snake. I've chased a few of them myself, but I have yet to be chased by any of these guys. And copperheads are extremely common, and this is the typical behavior of these guys. Now that being said, if you mess with it, poke at it with a stick, beat it with a stick, it's going to behave a little different. So left alone, this is typical behavior for these guys.
I don't want to see what happens.
No. So what these guys have, the venomous snakes, in the top of their head, or at the back of their head, they've got a pair of venom glands. And then there's little ducts that go from the gland up to fangs that are in the front of their mouth. And these fangs fold up inside their mouth. When they open their mouth up, fangs come out, and they bite. They can strike extremely fast. There was a study done using cottonmouths, diamondback rattlesnakes, and black snakes to see what the strike speed was. And they averaged right around 12 miles per hour, which that doesn't sound very fast, but we're talking feet here and not miles as far as distance. So they also measured that the snake could cover the first 6 inches of that strike in 70 milliseconds. And to put that in perspective, when you blink your eyes, close your eyes and open them back up, that takes about 200 milliseconds. So literally in the blink of an eye, this guy can strike and inject venom. So you don't want to get close to this thing. The pit vipers here in Arkansas are what's called an ambush predator. And what that means is they're going to use their camouflage. In this case, this guy's going to get in some leaves and he hides really, really good. And he's going to sit there and wait for a mouse to come by or a frog or whatever he's after, and then he's going to nail it. So we get a lot of questions of what good snakes are in general, and even in particular venomous snakes. And I assume by now you guys have covered in school and science the concept of an ecosystem.
I have been learning
So you've got all sorts of animals that make up an ecosystem, and they all have different roles in there. And in this case, these guys' job is to control rodent populations. So these guys keep the number of mice and rats and other nasty rodents, their populations in check. So what that means is, think a mouse isn't that dangerous. Well, mice can carry lovely little things. Every now and then you'll read about this thing called the hantavirus that people will contract where there's large mouse populations. That's kind of ugly. The other big thing is your mammals will carry ticks. Anybody have a tick on them before? You ever got a tick on you? Yeah, that's kind of serious. So there's these lovely things called Rocky Mountain spotted fever and Lyme disease, or my favorite, there's one called ehrlichiosis that I've had 2 rounds of with from a tick bite. So those little bitty ticks are kind of bad, and these guys help control that population. The other thing that they're finding is there's lots of uses for snake venom in medicine. So in particular, copperheads, there's a tiny, tiny little protein in their venom that is extremely effective in destroying cancer cells. And what unfortunately is too minute or too small of amount of protein to be useful for them to extract the venom and use, but they're currently working on trying to develop a synthetic version of it. So we've got the chemists out there trying to recreate what these guys have done to hopefully have another avenue for dealing with cancer. Also, their venom, a typical pit viper venom is going to cause a lot of pain and swelling. It also causes a lot of internal bleeding. And there's actually a drug on the market today for blood clots that comes from a pygmy rattlesnake venom. That it'll break up those clots. That's pretty good. So there's some interesting uses for venom with these guys that they're finding out. So we get a lot of questions also of folks will see little bitty snakes that have no pattern like this in their flower bed and think that they've got baby copperheads. So all of the venomous snakes here in Arkansas, the babies look just like the adults do. So baby copperhead's going to have this exact same pattern. And kind of the thing to remember here is if you're looking down from it from above, it looks like a little hourglass on its back or a bow tie. If you're looking at it from the side, it looks like a little triangle on its side. There's no spots there. It's the only snake in Arkansas that's got triangles on the side, so they're, in our minds, they're fairly easy to identify, but unfortunately they get confused with a lot of harmless snakes. When these guys are born, they look just like the adults do, except the very tip of their tail, which on this girl here is darkened, but when they're born, the tip of their tail is a real bright yellow. And this year's crop of baby copperheads is already hatched out, so there's probably some crawling around right now that'll have a real bright yellow tip on the end of the tail. And what they do, they use that just like, kind of like a fishing lure. You've seen fishing lures that are real bright? Well, they'll use their camouflage to sit in the leaves. They'll flick that bright yellow tail, and they'll draw in a little mouse or a little frog, and they've got a meal. So we'll get some more of the venomous snakes out. Anybody have any questions on copperheads? Anything? Yes, sir.
Not about specific copperheads, but if you were to find a snake in your yard, do y'all, have Facebook pages or somebody that could possibly come?
Yeah. So I'm actually on call of sorts with Greenwood, Fort Smith, and Sebastian County Animal Control to do removals. And yeah, I've removed a lot of snakes. I've removed a lot of non-venomous snakes. I have removed a couple of copperheads from folks' places. So yeah, that's a good point.
Is he gonna fall?
No, they typically hook pretty good. So if you've got a snake there and you're not wanting to, or not well versed or used to dealing with them, the best thing to do is leave it alone and have somebody come get it that knows how to deal with it. There's a very specific group of folks that get bit, and unfortunately it's the demographic is they're male, they're anywhere from 16 to 24, and generally there's some additional beverages involved, but you don't want to mess with these things if you don't know what you're doing, because it's very, as I said, they're very quick to strike and it's very easy to mess up. Plus, when we first put him down here, this snake is not being aggressive at all. But if you're trying to shoo it out of the yard or trying to kill it, then the snake's demeanor, his behavior is going to change dramatically, and he's going to try to defend himself. And another little caveat to that, snakes, their muscles have their bodies in general have a very low oxygen requirement. And what ends up and happens is even after they're dead, their muscles still can retain a little bit of action. And there was a YouTube video